All right, Dan, how are you?
Doing fantastic, Dylan. Thanks for having me on your podcast. This is amazing.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I'm super excited for this one.
Well, congratulations, because you had a vision and a daydream, maybe even, and then you made it happen. Like it's really here,
Yeah,
and I'm
it's
glad to be here too.
it's been an incredible journey so far. So I mean, obviously, I met you probably several years ago at camp. Um,
Yeah,
s- so let's get
Camp
a
Big
little bit
Heart.
of
I've been doing Camp Big Heart for more than 3 decades, if you can believe that.
how did you get involved?
Well, I moved from Chicago, Illinois, where I grew up, to the Georgia area, and I think it was Lanny or Dr. Lonnie. Somebody like found my number and hired me to come to a juggling show. I was a kid. I was just in high school and maybe starting college just that year, and I just kind of fell in love with it. And eventually, it was just like, I'm going to come every year. Like, I want to be here. Such an amazing place, a
Yeah,
great
that's
experience.
that's basically what happened with me. I mean, I think I was like 12 years old when I started volunteering at camp, and I think my first year you were there and you started juggling. I was like, man, this guy's impressive because you were juggling like bowling pins, and then you would juggle on a tricycle, juggle fire. I'm like, dude, what more can an entertainer do? Like, this guy's crazy.
It was a unicycle, Dylan. Tricycles are a whole different
Yes,
deal.
yes,
Yeah, yeah.
yes,
I even
yes.
brought,
More
I would
impressive.
even pull out all the stops at Camp Big Hearts. A couple of years, I brought my tall 15-foot unicycle, juggled fire on top of that. And, people didn't quite know what to make of me. But hey, it's just such a great place. So much love.
Yeah, how did you get involved with juggling in the first place? Because I've been reading your book, and
Yep.
you kind of go into a little bit of detail, but just for our audience.
Yeah. So I mentioned I'm from Chicago. My mom's an artist. And so I grew up with a lot of artistic influences in the household. And we would always showcase her work at different fairs and festivals throughout my youth. And when I was 11, we were at a Renaissance festival just over the border into Wisconsin. And it was there that I met a juggler, saw his show, and just was entranced by his ability. And I hung out over and over again, kept watching the show. And eventually he called me up and he said, you're watching me. I've seen you here all day, kid. Do you want to learn? And so when I said yes, it was like I found this channel for all of my energy and creativity, and it was such an awesome challenge, to try to learn something fun and physical. And the fact that he wanted to mentor me was also really special too. So that was it. That was what set the hook for me. And then, juggling is just such an amazing art form because you're never done learning. You can always try a different trick or add another ball or add another club or, whatever. Like the opportunities are endless. And so and it was also a way for me early on to get a sense of validation for my own ability and creativity. And I went from being that kid who was sort of an annoyance to the kid who had something kind
To
of
show,
interesting to
yeah.
offer. So
I got you. So this is actually always been a curious question of mine. Real quick before we move any further, uh, what's your max juggling? Because you do go into the book about how you have to basically learn a new technique every time you start juggling something new. So instead of juggling 3 balls, you got to learn a new technique to juggle 4 balls. Like
yeah,
what's
there's
your
different
max?
patterns, right? And so the patterns are something you have to understand, but then physically master. Um, in terms of numbers, I've never been a numbers guy. I perform with 5 balls, all the time. I can do 5 clubs, and then in practice, I can do 6 and a little bit. I can juggle 7 balls, a little bit. But like anything else, if you're not working that skill and practicing all the time, you
Yeah,
lose that edge of your ability.
right.
And so 7 is for me not something that I could rely on or put in a show right now. If I wanted to do that, I'd have to really invest some more time.
I got
But
you.
but again, for me, it's become more of a teaching tool because I talk about the metaphor of managing a lot in your life or trying to synthesize the different aspects of who you are and to bring that into reality.
Right.
Um, and so juggling is just a great visual way to illustrate those concepts and talk about focus, perspective, balance, integration, and also to keep my audience pretty engaged.
So you've written a book, like you were just talking about. You're a motivational speaker, and you incorporate all these motivational aspects of your juggling into your performance. And you've actually written a book called Off Balance on Purpose, diving into how to find your purpose and what it means to be on balance, or in your terms, off balance on purpose.
Right.
So there's one interesting concept that I really liked. It's sort of like this embracing the chaos aspect, where you're talking about how you kind of want to, on purpose, be off balance in a good way, in an alignment with what you need to do, what you need to find out, or how you find out who you are and how to incorporate that into your reality. So I
Yeah.
found that like as an incredible optimistic piece of advice for people that are struggling with finding their purpose or figuring out who they are.
Yeah. I wrote the book because I thought people were having the wrong conversation completely.
Hmm.
I was working in corporate America, and company to company, they were all talking about achieving balance. Like, our people just really need to get this whole work life balance thing. And if we could only attain balance, then we were all going to be okay. And it's like, well, wait a second, is that really the goal? And so I started thinking about it, started writing about it, started talking about it. And what I came to understand is that, balance isn't what you get. Balance is what you do.
Right.
We're balancing all the time in terms of, what we choose to invest our focus in, our energy, our money, day to day, moment to moment. You're constantly being pulled, and that's okay. That life is dynamic. And so we look at this dynamic sense of balance, and what it means is, you have to be off balance in order to accomplish something meaningful, in order to live by your values, in order to love your family or achieve a goal you're really going after. Anything that happens because of a bias toward that intention.
Hmm.
And so really, instead of saying, I'm not going to be okay right now or ever until my life is somehow mythically balanced, and it's saying, no, we're not living for some hypothetical future that's never going to happen. we're
Right.
living in, we're living now, like, because all you ever get is this moment now.
Right.
And I want to make that moment the most awesome it can be. And so I'm going to be intentionally creating a new change, or being present, off balance, on purpose, which means it's both intentional and connected to a sense of meaning. So bringing us a higher expectation for your life, that you have a purpose, first of all,
Hmm.
and that you can discover that and can continue to discover it more and more throughout your whole lifetime.
Right. And so I think one of the interesting concepts to me was how you were talking about this intentional, like you were saying, off balance approach. It's not trying to find where life kind of equals out. It's figuring out how you can grow in making sure you align that with your purpose and sort of off balance yourself towards your purpose. So it's sort of this intentional confronting the chaos or confronting the dragon aspect, right?
Yeah, or maybe even creating the chaos sometimes. I mean,
Yeah.
not that we want to live in that constant state of perpetual, upheaval, which a lot of people are in right now. You know,
And
trying to.
I think that was something that I found interesting about what you were saying. It wasn't the fact that you were advocating that people just go, uproot their lives in favor of chaos. It was like an intentional design to it. It was either you involuntary confront the chaos, or the chaos confronts you.
Yeah.
So I thought that was very interesting.
In the bigger piece we may or may not get to is like balance, or the concepts. First of all, when people say work life balance,
Right.
that phrase is already wrong, because it implies your work isn't even part of your life. It's something else that you have to somehow do in order to have a life, which is ridiculous, because work is a very important part of your life.
Right.
It's where you spend the majority of your waking hours, or a lot of people do. And it should be meaningful, it should be joyful, it should be purposeful. I mean, if we're not working in a realm where we're feeling a sense of purpose, or that our position matters, or that our effort matters, can be incredibly draining and demeaning and just pointless, right? And so I think we can, regardless of your job, you can find a way to bring purpose to that job. But then also, like, your health, your relationships, your your spirit and spiritual growth, the passions and personal interests that you have. People who advocate for attaining balance typically will say compartmentalize your life, protect your time in each of those areas
Right.
so that they don't interfere with each other because they're kind of mutually exclusive, which is, again, nonsense.
Right.
They're not mutually exclusive, they're all interconnected. And so when we can, again, look at that concept of the pattern or the system of how everything fits together, then you can step back and say, like, all right, am I making this choice for all the right reasons? And how will it impact the totality of who I am? And how can I bring like my full self to whatever challenge I'm facing or whatever idea, like, to your podcast again, for example, it's like
Mhm.
you're bringing all of you to this, and which is why I'm here.
Well, thank you again. Huge shout out to everybody that's in the chat and everybody's hyping it up. um,
Awesome.
yeah. I think I forgot to send you the link to. No, I sent you the link in your email to the YouTube channel. So if by any chance you want to just pull up the chat on your phone, if someone asks you a question, then they can see that. If
Sweet.
not, we can just continue and I'll just read off the questions here. But I do have a question for you pertaining to purpose in the real world. And it's along the lines of a little bit political, because I want to know if you think that everybody can truly obtain a purposeful, meaningful work life. And the reason why I asked that is because I know there are a lot of proponents right now for universal basic income. And so I was wondering if perhaps if for some reason we had all of our basic needs met, would that put us more towards an alignment with whatever purpose that we're meant to do? Or do you think that the stress of basic needs kind of gets in the way?
Now that is a big question, and I don't want to step into some political landmines either,
Right.
but to me, the idea of sitting around collecting a check so that I can explore my deepest desires is not enticing.
Right.
Like, I wouldn't want that. To me, like, even during this the pandemic and the coronavirus and all of this, and there's PPP loans where I could like cover my employees' salaries if I go through all these hoops and fill out all this paperwork and put myself in that position. And for me, I don't even want to go into that headspace, Dylan.
Right.
I want to be a creator. I want to be someone who can find the opportunity, because the truth is, if you approach your life with an idea that there's scarcity, there's lack all around you. And you know what? The only way that you can get by, the only way that you can succeed is to, have someone else take care of your needs.
Right.
Um, then to me, that's a defeating position. And it's also the wrong position, because I believe in abundance, and I believe that there is so much more opportunity all around you. And people don't see it. People don't see that there's not just one right answer. There's like thousands of right answers. And there's not just one part of you that can be successful. There's so much inside of you. And
Hmm.
my whole mission in life is to help people understand like how great they are already, in order to accomplish and become even more. And so, my mom, let's go back to my mom.
Right.
And so, there's this whole concept of art, and art is for only the artist can appreciate the art. And if it comes from the true essence of their soul, then it has value, right? Well, what my mom taught me, my mom was an artistic entrepreneur. She ran an art studio out of our basement, which, by the way, in Chicago, where I grew up on the southwest side in a little Polish neighborhood, was on a 28-foot lot, small house. Houses were so close together, you could reach out your arms and touch two of them just like this. And there was our house, and then right next door was my grandma's house. And my grandparents lived next to us as we grew up. My grandfather was a metal cabinet manufacturer. My grandmother ran a drapery company out of her basement where she sewed drapery. And my mom had discovered that she could paint. And so she created artwork. She did people's pet portraits from all over the country. They would send her these pictures, and she'd create works of art.
Oh
Uh,
wow.
and we would do these fairs and festivals, and sometimes it went well, and sometimes it went horribly, and we didn't sell anything, and we were there all day and got rained on, and it's like, but my mom said, it doesn't matter what you do. What matters is how you do it. Any job can be an artistic expression, because within that job, that sense of purpose, you get to bring so much value to what you do, and you get to express yourself in all these different ways. And so that's the message I got growing up. And so I was really kind of bred with this sense that you don't discover your purpose and then go to work. You get out there and you do stuff, and you create stuff, and you serve people, and you create value in their lives. And through that, you begin to discover more of what you really value.
Right. And I think that that's why it's so important right now, especially during this pandemic where everybody's sort of locked inside, where we have so much downtime and trying to figure everything out. It's like, well, how are you going to express yourself during this time? What are you going to do to, like you said, artistically express yourself through
Yeah.
whatever meaningful work that you have or you do? So I think that that's why the concept and the topic of purpose, especially right now, is so critical.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I'll tell you what I've been doing. I created our video studio into a multi-camera, multi-set live broadcasting facility. We've got 5 Black Magic cameras and a digital switcher and 3 different sets. And I'm doing live virtual, presentations for clients all over the world. And so, the analogy I use is, instead of being a road warrior where I'm always getting on planes going to these events, I've now become a drone pilot. And I go into my technology bunker and I fire up all my equipment, and I drop these inspiration bombs on unsuspecting audiences everywhere. And so that's my one outlet, and it's been exciting because I'm learning a ton, and I'm also realizing, like, I have something now, even after this is over, that I can use in different ways.
right.
It's all about, the way you view life. Are you being, you could either view life as being tested all the time, like you're running this gauntlet of things coming at you, or when things change, you could say, all right, what am I going to do to test myself? Like,
Hmm.
how am I going to test me and find that next level? Because, as you also read from the book, like, the more you do, the more you can do. I
Right.
never got the hang of juggling 4 balls until I tried 5 balls. If you think what you're doing now is difficult, don't sit in your room, go try something harder. And when you do, this level is going to get easier for you. And if you have to sit in your room, you could still learn and think and create and do, and put yourself in situations where you just have to pass that self-prescribed test. And it makes you better.
Yeah.
You can't, when you prescribe your own regimen for improvement, you can't lose, because you either, like, succeed in the way you hoped you did, or you get this awesome self-discovery. So either way, you just win out of that scenario.
Yeah,
That's the way I look at it.
you use the analogy of working out, like, and how you use a muscle, like, right? So
Yeah.
you have to push the muscle beyond the point to where it fails to basically heal itself and come back super compensated. So
Yep.
I thought that was a good analogy. I'm going to get to some of these questions here real quick. So Chandler says, I have a question. What do you define as success?
Success, I mean, like, when you think about it as a parent, and I'm a parent, as some of you might be, it's like, all you really want for your kids is for them to be fulfilled, happy, safe, content, and to live a full life. So I view success as a multi-dimensional um, pattern, a multi-dimensional view that incorporates meaningful work, great relationships, physical health, spiritual peace, and also the expression of joy in my passions, my personal interests.
Okay.
All of those are sort of equally important to me. And so right now, while work is diminished or redirected, or just kidding, I'm off the road. We talked about it at dinner yesterday. I haven't had this much time at home ever. In my wife and I have known each other 30 years. The kids asked, "Have you ever been home this long, Dad?" I was like, "No, I don't think I ever have. I mean, ever." I've always been gone somewhere, but so that's this huge gift, and I still feel successful because the other aspects of who I am are kind of coming more into alignment or congruence with what I want them to be. You mentioned earlier TikTok videos, so
Yes.
I'm making TikTok videos every day with my daughter Maggie, and it's just this crazy thing that we're doing, and it's so much fun, and so I'm having a blast.
You honestly do seem like you're having a blast, because I watched the one where you guys were answering questions about each other, and then you would push each other in the pool.
Yeah.
It looked like you guys were having a great time. You could tell the dynamic between you two was just it like a blessing, like father daughter. It's like you're supportive of her and she's supportive of you. Like, I know we asked this question before we got on the podcast, but how do you navigate the TikTok world?
Yeah. Well, it's been a heck of an education, that's for sure. Maggie has now over almost 2 million followers, 1.9 something. It'll
Mm.
probably be later today that she gets 2.9. We did a video yesterday that has 10 million views, 10.1 million views, and 3 million likes just yesterday. And she just posted another one now that I shot earlier today. So, I mean, it's the scale of this thing is just mind blowing. And it started as just kind of a fun experiment for her in high school, her senior year. She wanted to commemorate her senior year by doing one TikTok a week. And then she kind of got some traction, and then we started doing stuff together. And I'm not in all of her videos, but there is this incredible like dad daughter dynamic,
Oh yeah.
and she can get me to do just about anything. Um, Yesterday in this video, I was actually wearing heels for the first and last time because they are so painful. Like
Oh, so we'll have to go save the video and make sure we upload it and send that to you.
okay, yeah,
Okay.
no, it's good. The more uploads, the better, I guess. But it's been an interesting navigation journey for sure, because this has turned from something that for her, was initially just like she wasn't even pursuing like influencer status, and now she's got it, and it's continuing to grow, and she has an agent and is
Does she
having
really?
ad buys, and she's companies are asking her to rep things, and she's talking to various other projects. She's talking to YouTube and
Wow.
Nickelodeon about things they're working on. It's like it's
No
crazy
way.
to see like the trajectory and the opportunity that's there, which I totally support.
Right.
But it's a crazy world. It's like the Wild West. There's all kinds of stuff on YouTube or on TikTok.
As a dad, do you like play protector? Do you like somehow get in there and like, yeah, no, not that. We're not doing that.
She has a very good moral compass, and she has a deep faith, and she knows those boundaries. But yeah,
Right.
but I mean, but the dad's job
It's the
is
dad's
is
job.
is to point them out and to say, and really, I have to look out for her interests more than she would, and that is the way that a daughter knows how much her dad loves her.
Right.
Uh, and so, you know, she's very comedy. She'll ask me what I think about certain outfits. The video that she shot earlier today, it's a swimsuit shot. Yeah, maybe you should put on a pair of shorts.
Yeah. You're still the dad here, you know.
Yeah, it's a little weird. No, but we have fun, and it's she's done it in a way that is very, I think, authentic and wholesome,
Right.
and there's a great need for that. I look at some of her followers and the mentions and the videos that people duet with her, and they're these kids all over the world, right? And some of them are like 8, 10, 7-year-old girls, and it's like she's become like this
Role model.
role model for them. And so that's important not to abuse that, right?
Right.
And she gets that for sure.
So, I mean, you're obviously a juggler and an entertainer. So, have you been able to help her navigate this TikTok world? You know, have you been able to, um, I guess, steady the seas a little bit?
I think it's the other way around, that she's helping me understand it, and it's just a lot of communication about what we're doing and why we're doing it. But in terms of performance, she's always been a ham. Even before, she could talk, she was performing. She was doing physical comedy for her parents in a diaper. It was like hilarious. I mean, we've got those videos too, by the
Oh my
way.
gosh.
But she's been on stage with me a ton. Obviously, she's got the skills, the juggling and unicycling and rollabola and rolling globe and like all that.
Right.
But she just knows, I don't know, she's got that special spark, and I I do try to help her, but I also realize there's the runway where I can be hands on with that is like coming to an end. She's ready to take off because college starts this fall. She's going to be away at college, and then other opportunities truly will call to her. And at that point, you just have to do what you can to trust that what you've taught for 18 years is well rooted in this young lady.
Well, I mean, I've seen you like I've basically seen you all my life, growing up and seeing
And my
Maggie,
kids
yeah, and your
and
kids
Eddie.
coming to.
Eddie, I remember bringing Eddie to camp one year. It was just me and him, and he was probably 4. And I had him like blowing bubbles and doing stuff like this during the show to kind of help me out. And at one point in the middle of the show, he comes and he pulls on my leg and says, "Dad, I have to go to the bathroom." And we we literally called someone up on the mic to cover for a couple minutes while I took my son to the bathroom and came back and continued with the show. And that's the kind of thing you could do at Camp Big Heart, and it's like totally fine.
Oh
Nobody cares.
yeah, no, no, no. I mean, you could turn it into a whole like segment, and people would
Yeah,
like get hype for it.
exactly.
Let's go to some of these questions real quick. Again,
Sure.
Chandler asks, what do you suggest to someone who loves to work but can't because of what's going on in the world right now? Because I'm sure others like me have been feeling stagnant during these times.
Yeah. So I agree 100%. You have to redefine kind of what work means to you. And I'm not sure to clarify if this means just what can I do to make money, which is a genuine need and a totally important thing, or what can I do to feel that sense of purpose because I want it and I can't go out and work right now. So let me speak first to purpose. And I would say one thing I'm telling everybody is you should be keeping a journal during this time because 2020, these days of COVID, it's a historical marker.
Hmm.
Like you will be telling your kids about what it was like to go through this. And so it's important. And by the way, the reality has changed so much week by week, day by day, and sometimes moment by moment in
Right.
terms of what we're feeling, what we're thinking, our level of optimism, our level of pessimism, our fear, our joy, our celebrations. We've discovered so much about what we thought was important, but we realize it probably isn't, right?
Hmm.
These are all super important gifts of like this whole experience. And so your job, if you don't have one right now, should be chronicling this experience, writing it down, writing in a journal what what this means to you, because again, you'll find those gifts in the process. Now, in terms of like what can you do out there to make money, I know that there's a lot of people out there looking for help who just can't find it. In a way, and again, not to prescribe
Right.
political ramifications, but some of the remedies that have been prescribed are actually making certain aspects of the situation worse because when people are collecting unemployment plus extra checks to be at home because we've been told to shut down, and now the companies who are wanting to hire people back can't get help, like they can't get employees. So for those willing to work, willing to get out there and maybe try something new, I think the opportunities are certainly there or going to be there very, very soon.
Hmm.
And then, the other thing I would say is like, consider the fact that what you were doing before this may not be what you end up doing now. It's almost like, this forced reset where we've all been able to like power down, reboot our computer, reboot our lives in some sense. and reinvent yourself. Like you could literally, if you've often heard the expression, um, if I could start over, I would do a lot of things differently.
Right.
We've just been given that gift. Like you've literally just had a chance to reboot, start over, and essentially relaunch a whole new upgraded version of you.
Right.
Right. And so give that some thought. And again, journal that thought and process. If you could do anything, not thinking from the scarcity limited mindset of, gosh, there's just not that many jobs out there. Flip it. There's so much abundance and opportunity right now. If you could do anything in this world, what would it be? And then how would you go about creating that? And I hope that doesn't sound too like rose-colored glasses to
Oh,
you,
no, no.
because it's not. This is genuine thought strategy that will enable you to access a different part of you and a different part of your soul in order to manifest different opportunities in the world. And by the way, when you start to get that mindset and change your language and start talking this way, just watch how it impacts the people around you, and literally can create these ripple effects of your influence, which are just absolutely huge.
Right. And like you were saying, I think there's this weird period of uncertainty of like what's happening right now? Like what are we doing? And as you were talking about earlier, and I think we brought up the topic of purpose during this whole ordeal and people being stuck or feeling stuck, like there's nothing they can do. I didn't really think to, I guess, journal it out. That's an interesting perspective.
Yeah, you mentioned uncertainty, and maybe we can get some more questions, but let me just riff on this for a minute.
Okay.
And so it's another one of those terms. We just have to get through the uncertainty. It's like saying we just have to get to balance,
Mm-hmm.
right? You never have complete certainty. You never have complete uncertainty. There's a spectrum of certainty in which we live. There are certain things we do know with absolute 100% clarity.
Right.
You know your name, you know your past, you know what you love, you know who you love, your values, hopefully your principles. There's certain things we have that we hold on to, like this is certain in my life. And then there's just other aspects of what's unknowable. And right now, the uncertainty of this is really different because I mean, if only we knew like when there could be a way out, and what if we had a time, if we had a date, it was like, okay, it's going to be weird until then,
Right.
and then I think everybody would think about it much differently. But that's the uncertainty, right? It's like we're in a war that we don't know when the ending is going to be coming, and so that's not new to humanity. We've been through these types of periods before, and in a way, so the first strategy is claim your certainties.
Mm-hmm.
The second strategy is embrace the unknown, right? And so instead of thinking about these future scenarios as uncertain, I want you to think about them as unfolding. Unfolding. So in other words, you don't know this and it's unknowable right now. Like I don't care how smart you are, you couldn't have those answers.
Right.
And you're going to figure it out in time. So think about it like you were watching a movie or reading a book. And imagine if you could only enjoy a movie if you knew the ending in advance, right? Which is just ridiculous. Like, we obviously go along with the ride of a great movie, of a great story. That's what this is. The future is unfolding, and we just have to participate in the unfolding, do what we can, and trust that what we're doing now, and this is the third strategy, to create more certainty, right? You create
Right.
certainty because of how you improve yourself, of how you decide to make something better in the midst of other things that are not so great. Like, this is what I'm going to do. This is my project. And this is what I'm going to do to create something I'm proud of, right?
Mm-hmm.
Creating certainty will feed into everything else, because again, we can only ever exist from this place of having some certainty, and we still want to be happy and joyful and productive and
Right.
enthusiastic about life.
So I have a question. We've talked about how uncertainty can kind of, or the illusion of uncertainty, um, it kind of manifests itself in people, and how that we should be shifting our perspective a little bit differently. Uh, what I question now is the social media's impact on uncertainty. So right now, for example, if you log into Facebook, there is so many different posts of what about whether or not, the pandemic is a conspiracy or it's real. And we don't have to get into we're not going to get into that argument because that's so it's annoying to me. But the I guess the question is there's so much information out there. So how do you figure out what to be certain for, like, or certain to?
Well, I think you have to use your own judge in your own sense of
Right.
self, and really the whole presence, the whole gift of this lifetime is to learn to be comfortable with your own skin and in your own thoughts,
Right.
be present in who you are, right? And so I myself am a little bit guilty of baiting those traps, not baiting those traps for argument's sake, but I'm fascinated by politics.
Yeah.
I could really, I have very strong opinions, um, but I don't ever go there with anyone else
Mhm.
because I can't I can't negate their reality, right? All you ever get is like your perspective, and it's not incumbent upon me to convince you of my perspective relative to politics or faith or any other aspect. So I guess what I'm saying is and first of all, I steer clear of that noise.
Of course.
I just don't go there. I found myself watching less news. I found myself
Yeah.
reading less Facebook, um, because I just noticed within myself it's triggering something like that I don't like. It's
Right.
trigger, and when you feel triggered, um, this thought came to me the other day. It's like, all right, I don't want to feel triggered because I'm not a gun. Like I don't want to be shooting off and fighting back. And it's like I want to just be able to go through life with ease and
I
uh,
completely get that.
with empathy, right? And
Right.
so I think that's the big word. And especially as we come out of this time, when we ask like, is the next normal going to look like? Are people ever going to be comfortable together in crowds? And I think yes, it'll be different in certain ways, but I don't believe that like Broadway is going to go away or
Right.
concerts are going to go away or conventions or
Mhm.
meetings or events. They're all going to be different, and empathy is important because there will still be some people who will feel very uncomfortable in those circumstances and will conduct themselves very, very differently.
Right.
Be okay. Like you can't tell someone else that their version of reality is wrong because all they ever get is like their truth. Their truth is in their head. And so, that's the way I tend to look at it. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, no, it's a very interesting point because again, like you said, I get triggered when I sign on to Facebook and I'll read some articles. But it's the empathy aspect to where I understand where the other person is coming from, and it's not like I'm trying to convince myself or convince them that they're wrong. So I'm on your side with that. I do not message, like I try to stay out of politics on Facebook, especially. But it, the pandemic especially has gotten me questioning. You know, how do we know what is true now if all this information is constantly battling for our mind? Like what how do we know what's true? Yeah, we could hear one thing from this doctor or that doctor, but then you turn around and you hear something else from another doctor, like another source. Or not specifically to do with the pandemic, but that's just an example and how I kind of came to that conclusion. It's like I'm so confused now on how we figure out what is true. And I think you made a good point to where you have to just be empathetic towards other people and find your own truth
Yeah.
and just help people and understand that they have their own truth and it's okay to have that sort of boundary.
Another way to put it perhaps is this one, and that is, and I can't take credit for this. I heard it, I think, from Wayne Dyer, who was probably quoting someone else at the time, but he said when you're faced with two answers, neither of which you can know 100% to be true.
Right.
Choose the one that serves you best.
Okay.
So there is a God, there isn't a God. You know, there is hope, there isn't hope. There
Hmm.
is a solution, there isn't a solution. People are inherently good, people are inherently evil. Pick the one that serves you best and that gives you that greater sense of joy and puts you in that position again where you can access more of your own gift, more of your own abundance. And so I think that's been my default my entire life. No one taught it to me, but it's something I was kind of pre-programmed in my head is I always defaulted to assume the best of people, and to really kind of put myself in a position. And it's, worked against me a few times where perhaps I've been taken advantage of here or there. But more often, when you presume people to be good and giving and true, um, they typically will want to rise to that level
Right.
of ability, and prove you right. That's been my experience.
Yeah, I think your reality reflects your perspective. So, I mean, if you constantly are giving people the benefit of the doubt, then I think that that sort of will reflect in your own behavior, in your own reality. And at the time, it might not work out for your best interests, but in the end, it probably will. So I think reality sort of corrects itself in that manner. But in the same token, if you have the perspective that life is a challenge and you know there's no way to overcome it, then that sort of perspective will end up inhibiting you from actually improving yourself. So I think you made a good point on that. Let's get to some of these questions. Jordan said, any advice for those that want to try something new but afraid of failing?
Sure. Yeah, that's great. Afraid of failing. That's such a showstopper right there. Again, imagine if you could, if you would never try anything unless you had a guarantee of success. Like for example, juggling again.
Right.
Juggling is like failure on steroids. Um, I've taught thousands of people how to juggle. And the only thing that separates those who can do it from those who can't do it is those who can do it picked up more drops. Like that's it. And maybe it's dozens more drops. Maybe it's just one more drop because you never know how close you are to that breakthrough moment. So it's about reframing this whole concept of failure as not necessarily an impediment or a definitive announcement of the fact that this is never going to be something for you. But every time you fail, every time you drop, or every time you struggle, it's one more step towards success. You want to fail as much as possible. You want to fail in a way that's safe. You want to fail in a way that you're smart and you're aware of what you're doing. And again, it's connected to a sense of purpose so that when you do hit a barrier,
Right.
it's testing that confidence and resolve about, wait, is this still really important to me? Like, am I going to go after it? Because if you back off, like when I see people set down the juggling balls after 3 tries and they're like, that's just not for me. I just go, in my head, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, like that was the moment. Like you will never, ever juggle for the rest of your life. I just saw it. And you were so close. Like if you would have just stuck with this like 4 more minutes, then you would have known how to juggle for the rest of your life. So it's about that intentional struggle. If something's worth doing well, it's worth doing really poorly
Right.
for a while until you get it right. So fail often, fail quickly,
Have you
and then get better,
have you
fail
encountered
less.
somebody that's like had a fear of success though? Not maybe not a fear of failure, but a fear of success. Um, like take the podcast for example. Like what if somebody, all right, not in my shoes, but was doing the podcast or they decided like this thing was gonna actually like take off, but then they got nervous that it was gonna take off. Have you ever encountered somebody that had a fear of success?
Yeah, I mean, it happens in every industry, certainly. um there's the band who it's just a bunch of guys getting together and doing their jam thing, and then suddenly they get a song and they get a hit and they're like in the studio and they're like, holy cow, like we don't really even know what we're doing. And then the self-doubt kicks in, and they self-sabotage, and then they either have to overcome that and find that they're deserving. So that's the big thing. It's like called imposter syndrome, where
Hmm.
you don't feel like you're deserving the success that you have. And then to that, I would just say, you're deserving because you're here. Like you're you. You are enough. And there's this whole concept that I have to actually prove myself. And uh, who am I? I thought this in the beginning of my speaking career. Is I was 25 years old. I thought, who wants to listen to me? What do I know? Like I'm this kid who started a juggling business, paid for my college. That was kind of cool. I performed at all these places. I know a couple things. I know some good tricks. I can entertain an audience, but who am I to tell people about their life, like how to live their life? But that was all in my head. People didn't, everybody operates from a precarious sense of confidence. I don't care who or at what level. Like we all are that little vulnerable 12-year-old kid on the inside. And in a way, we need to find encouragement and validation that it's going to be okay and that we're enough. And
Right.
I'm here to just tell you, like, you're enough. You've got nothing to prove. You've only got stuff inside of you to share and to give. And so don't hold back on that, and never underestimate the power of like your words and influence on others when you can encourage them and validate them, because that's a power that we all have in abundance.
I like that. I like that. Thank you. Thank you. We have another comment. This is from Joseph. He says, Dan, what is one of your favorite places you have traveled?
Favorite places I've traveled. Wow. That's a hard question. People ask me like, where would you go again or whatnot? Probably the most epic place I ever traveled was in 2005 when I spent a month on the front lines of Iraq and Afghanistan performing for the
Oh,
troops.
really? Wow.
Not necessarily like a vacation hotspot, but like an incredible adrenaline rush, strapping on the body armor and flying helicopters from show to show, and hanging out in the desert and getting shot at occasionally. And
Really?
it was a thrill
Wow.
beyond words. I've been to uh, Australia a couple times. Beautiful. I love Australia. Um, Dubai was pretty amazing. I was supposed to go back to Dubai in August, but that's not happening. I'll be doing my virtual studio for that one. Uh,
So wait, do you perform virtually? Like, so do you just set up the camera and
yeah, so
do a
that
whole
was my
performance?
my test of this pandemic for me was like this multi-camera broadcasting studio, and so like we go in there and we fire up the cameras, and I've got my wife Shay who runs the switcher, and my son Eddie is now home from college, and he's been in there too on audio, and actually he's been running cameras. He's been switching cameras, but we got a 5-camera, 3-set multi like digital broadcasting studio. It's pretty deluxe, and
Yeah, I mean it looks cool from my end. Like I've
well,
got a
no, this
I've got a
this right here,
background.
this is my office. So
Oh, is it
that's the
really?
studio. If you want to see the studio, go to danthurman.com.
Okay, so we'll have to definitely check that out after this, because I
Yeah,
mean,
definitely.
already I'm impressed with the whole microphone setup. Like I've got this background right here, and this is a hotel room. So
Well, you're traveling, right?
yeah, so I had to bring the whole setup with me.
Well, tell me what was that like? First of all, did you fly or drive?
We drove. So we're in
Okay.
Maryland right now, and Nikki, my wife, decided to take a travel nurse position up here because of the whole pandemic. And I
Wow.
was like, you know what? Well, I guess I'll go with you. Why not? I
Off
got
balance
nothing
on purpose, baby.
There you go. So I came up here with her, brought my PC set up, so now I have the whole podcast. Everything that I do up here is remote, and that's pretty much it. We've been here for 2 weeks. We'll be here for 2 more. So
Well, the hotel bandwidth seems to be holding up pretty well,
I
so that's
know,
good.
fingers crossed. I mean, we got a couple more minutes, so I'm hoping it'll stay that way. Let's see. Chandler, sometimes I have moments of no motivation, and once again, feeling stuck during these times. Is there any good practice or any tricks to try in work of getting out of bad practices or bad mindsets?
Yeah, sometimes what really helps me, and again, this might be just part of my nature, is because I'm so physically driven. But if I get too sedentary, I get stuck in my own head, and I have to get up and move. I get up, I go walking, I go running, I ride my unicycle. I've got a mountain unicycle that I ride mountain trails on a unicycle. That's kind of crazy, but
You ride a wait,
I'm
what?
not suggesting that's something you have to do. By the
So
way.
you ride a unicycle on mountain trail.
I do. But um, breaking the motivation, and again, journaling is good. And when you get to the end of a journal entry, make a list of things that you need to do. A lot of times when you feel overwhelmed, it might be or lethargic. It's that you're keeping it all in your head. And it feels like it's just an epic, endless sea of like crap you've just got to deal with. And when you can get it out and get it done, then you can say, all right, this isn't so bad. I'm going to start here and I'm going to knock this out. Or sometimes I make a list, I write down everything on the list, and then I go do something else that's not on the list. that's just
Come back
me.
to it later.
But
Start a to-do list.